So we're continuing our tour through the OHL playoff preview series. We've already done 2 out of the 8 series so far, and we're going to continue it here today. It's a random order that I've put together, and I'm also hoping that maybe by the end of the day I could put together a news video because we've got the draft lottery also taking place tomorrow for the Ontario Hockey League. So uh, we'll get to that soon enough. But in the meantime, let's talk about from the Western Conference, the number 2 seeded Windsor Spitfires against the number 7 Soo Greyhounds. And it's a rivalry that dates back quite a ways between these two hockey teams, even though it's going to be quite the distance to travel between the two cities. I believe it's about 5.5 hours. So we'll see how the bus legs are for either team. But the familiarity is a good thing, especially when you come into the playoffs. You want to have that rivalry. But it's the Spitfires who had the winning record when these two teams went head to head during the regular season. Windsor sporting a record of 4-1-1. Their last meeting was back on March 13th in Windsor. That was a 6-3 final for the Spitfires. The Spitfires also shut out the Sioux twice. That was back on December 28th and October 3rd. And one game was won in overtime. That was the Sioux back in November. That was on the 17th by a final score of 2-1. So some mixed results between these two teams. But when you look at the last 10, the Windsor Spitfires, since clinching the West Division title, a record of 5-4-1 over their last 10, so not too bad. But the Soo Greyhounds, 6-3-0-1 over the last 10 games. Basically, when they fell to ninth in the Western Conference standings, they turned it on. They've gone on a 5-game winning streak to go in the postseason. And we'll see how that translates into this playoffs, as the Greyhounds right now, one of the hottest teams in the OHL going into the postseason. So we'll see how this fares. Of course, Windsor has home ice advantage, being the number 2 seed. But I think this is going to be an intriguing matchup between the Greyhounds and the Spitfires. When we break down the numbers, the power play dominant by the Windsor Spitfires, 5th best during the regular season at 24.7%. While the Greyhounds, the power play could improve, 17th at 17.1%. So advantage Windsor. The penalty kill, also an advantage for the Spitfires. They had the 7th best penalty kill unit at 80.1%. And for the Greyhounds, 18th, 73.8%. So specialty teams needs improvement for Sault Ste. Marie coming into this postseason. In the goals for category, Windsor, 309 goals for during the 68-game regular season, while the Greyhounds, 226 goals for. So a bit of a difference there in the goals for category, and also in the goals against. Windsor, 223 goals against to Sioux's 268. So when you look at all those categories, it's favoring Windsor quite a bit on paper. But on penalty minutes, 896 penalty minutes during the regular season for Windsor, but 778 for the Sioux. So this is where if the Soo Greyhounds can maybe stay out of the penalty box, play some disciplined hockey, they'll give themselves a chance, because you really don't want this Windsor Spitfire team to get power play opportunities, as, like I said, a lethal power play unit, and there's a lot of weapons up front for the Spitfires team. Let's look at the top 5 scorers for Windsor. It starts with Ilya Protas. 50 goals, 74 assists, 124 points. Protas I would consider him an MVP on this team. There was a point where he was out due to illness when the Spitfires were in Barrie. And with Protas out of the lineup, it was a night and day difference for that team. Although I think it was more than just Protas who was going through a bit of an illness at that point. But still, just goes to show how vital he's been for this offensive threat with the Windsor Spitfires. Second in scoring, Liam Greentree, 49 goals, 70 assists, 119 points. Missed out on the 50-goal mark as he served a 2-game suspension to round up the rest of the regular season. But Greentree and Protas, a 1-2 punch. That's lethal on the Spitfires. Third in scoring was Noah Morneau, 32 goals, 41 assists, 73 points. Ryan Abraham, 4th in scoring, 29 goals, 37 assists, 66 points. And then rounding out the top 5 is Jack Nesbitt, 25 goals, 39 assists, 64 points. When you look at the Soo Greyhounds, their top scorer this season was Marco Magnosa, 36 goals, 49 assists, 85 points. Brady Martin, the draft-eligible prospect, came in second, 33 goals, 39 assists, 72 points. Brady Martin, he's expected to go in the first round of the 2025 NHL entry draft. I expect him to have a solid performance here come playoff time. Justin Cloutier, 3rd in team scoring, 28 goals, 26 assists, 54 points. Noel Nord, he had 21 goals, 31 assists, 52 points. And rounding out the top 5, Travis Hayes. He's a fun player to watch. 21 goals, 30 assists, 51 points. So there's weapons on both teams. Obviously, the point totals favoring the Windsor Spitfires. But then when you look at goaltending, I know there's some fans of the Windsor Spitfires that say goaltending might be the question mark coming into the playoffs. Joey Costanzo played the bulk of the games. 34, 10, and 3 was his record. 2.94 goals against average, not too bad, but the save percentage, 892. So usually with a starter, you kind of hope they get around the 900 or higher. But for Costanzo, just below the 900 save percentage mark. And then Carter Froget, the backup, 8-7-1 during the regular season. 3.52 goals against average and an 879 save percentage. Now on the Soo Greyhounds front for goaltending, Landon Miller played more games, so he had a record of 13, 17, and 1. 4.07 goals against average, so not the greatest, and that save percentage sitting at 887. But Nolan Lalonde, who they acquired at the trade deadline from Kingston, brings a lot of experience. He has a record of 16, 12, and 5 during the regular season. 3.30 goals against average and an 888 save percentage. It's going to be interesting to see who the Greyhounds go with. Do you go with Lalonde, who was a part of that Saginaw Spirit team that had a deep run in the playoffs last year? Or do you go with Landon Miller, who looked pretty strong at times last year as well for Sault Ste. Marie? And remember, there's players on this team that were there that went all the way to the Game 7 in the second round against the Saginaw Spirit. So you can't really count out the Soo Greyhounds team. They do have players returning from last year's team, and they're riding a 5-game winning streak. This team could cause some headaches here for the Windsor Spitfires. Now, what I found was fascinating. These two teams, they've got the history. They're in the same division, but they haven't met in the postseason since 2005. That's the last time these organizations have crossed paths in the playoffs. And the Windsor Spitfires, they won that meeting in 7 games. And that was back in the first round in 2005. So unreal. It's been that long. It's been 20 years since these two teams last met in the playoffs, which is quite incredible. Now, Game 1 will be Thursday night at the WFCU Center. Game 2 Saturday. And then the series will shift to Sault Ste. Marie on Monday, March 31st. That's Game 3. And then on Game 4, that'll take place on Wednesday, April 2nd. So I think this is an intriguing matchup. I do give the advantage to the Windsor Spitfires, but you can't count out this Greyhounds team. They are a determined bunch right now. They've been playing playoff-like hockey now for the last few weeks to fight for those final 2 playoff spots in the Western Conference standings. So we'll see if that can carry over into the playoffs, maybe get the split in Windsor. And this series, maybe it'll go 5 or 6 games potentially, but I do give the advantage to the Windsor Spitfires. But I think this is going to be a fun series to follow. Let me know in the comments section down below which team you think wins this series and how many games. Thank you very much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Talk to you again soon.